Bitcoin has grown up before our very eyes. It was born in response to deep mistrust in financial markets after the great financial crisis of 2008.
What could I have done differently? This is a pain that will stay with me for the rest of my life. That's all.
In 2024, many of these same institutions launched a series of Bitcoin ETFs. As with all things, growing up involves change. Change can be good. It's certainly necessary. It is fair to say that the version of Bitcoin we have today isn't what Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned when he wrote the famous Bitcoin paper. The original vision for Bitcoin was as an alternative to cash, a way for people to transact with each other without the need for banks or centralized institutions. 15 years later, only El Salvador has run that experiment at scale.
El Salvador is the only country in the world where you can buy almost anything with Bitcoin.
Hola, buenos días.
Buenos días.
¿Aceptan Bitcoin?
Sí, caballero.
El Salvador, with over half of its population relying on cash and a significant portion unbanked, was an excellent chance for Bitcoin adoption. In September 2021, the country introduced the Chivo wallet, offering incentives like $30 in free Bitcoin per download and discounts on gasoline and other purchases using Bitcoin. The wallet was available to anyone with a mobile phone and internet, 2/3 of the population. It allowed fee-free transactions, conversions, and ATM withdrawals. Some incentives were very unusual.
This is the largest animal hospital in the country. It's brand new. People are traveling from all over to bring their pets here. The reason is, if they pay using the app, preferably in Bitcoin, they can get all the care their pet needs for 25 cents.
Despite these incentives and the appeal of contactless payments, only 78% of those aware of the app attempted to download it. Only 9.3% of the people ever used the app after spending the initial $30. The main reasons for not using it included a preference for cash, not understanding technology enough, or, ironically, distrust in the Bitcoin-centric system. The main argument for Bitcoin has evolved over the years from a payment gateway to a store of value. An important question is, where does Bitcoin derive that value? And we'll get to that in a minute. But the essential feature of a store of value is that those who store value have an expectation that the value will increase over time. If not from today to tomorrow, then at least over a 5 to 10 year period.
The point is, if you have the superior asset, it's going up forever, Laura. Forever.
Right.
Ironically, this makes it a very poor payment mechanism, at least in well-functioning, developed economies. Why would you spend a currency today if you expect the value of that currency to be much higher next year? Let's come back to fundamental value. Typically, fundamental value comes from the ability of something to generate cash flows. Stocks are claims on companies which generate cash flows. When you buy a stock, you buy a part of that cash flow. Buildings, land, commodities, the argument goes, all have fundamental value because they generate cash or can be turned into things which generate cash.
It's a question of how much cash it's going to give you. That's the only reason. It's true if you're buying a farm. It's true if you're buying an apartment house. Any financial asset. Oil in the ground, you're laying out cash now to get more cash back later on. And the question is how much are you going to get, when are you going to get it, and how sure are you? And when I calculate intrinsic value of a business, when we buy businesses, and whether we're buying all of a business or a little piece of a business, I always think we're buying the whole business because that's my approach to it. I look at it and say, what will come out of this business and when?
This is not true of Bitcoin. Does that mean it has no fundamental value? Possibly. Fundamental value and actual value are not the same thing. Something is valuable because we agree it is valuable. The Mona Lisa is priceless, even though it has no fundamental value. You could argue that Banksy's work has even more value after some of its fundamental value has been destroyed.
Art connoisseurs could only watch in horror as an expensive piece was shredded before their eyes.
Perhaps a better way to think about Bitcoin is as a brand. To put it simply, brand equity is what a brand is worth above the product itself. Let's think about Apple. It's the world's most valuable brand. Apple products have a devoted following. Loyal customers pay a small fortune every year to buy their products. Customers often choose to pay a premium for an Apple product, although cheaper alternatives of equal or similar quality are available in the market. This premium encompasses not just the product's excellence, but also the value of engaging with a brand they respect and admire. This did not happen overnight. In fact, when Steve Jobs returned to Apple, the company was in trouble. Apple spent the last 20 years building a presence and reputation in the market, to the point where it has built hundreds of billions of dollars in brand value. Building a brand takes two things: awareness and time. In a way, it's mind-blowing that the value of Bitcoin has grown from nothing to $40,000 in only 15 years. What's even more astonishing is the fact that it has achieved this status relying on nothing external. It does not have the history of the Mona Lisa, or the sensationalism of a Banksy, or the utility of an Apple product, or the full faith and credit of the US government like the US dollar. It is completely self-contained. The best reason for its existence and value are the things that it represents and nothing else. In this sense, there's an almost spiritual component to it.
So one of the things that's most interesting if we compare Bitcoin and religion is many religions have an idea of millennialism, or history ends, and there is a form of collective salvation, at least for people who did the right things as part of the religion. There is a version of this in Bitcoin, which is that some Bitcoiners believe in coming hyper-Bitcoinization. When that happens, all other currencies will cease to be used. There will no longer be dollars or other government-issued currencies, so the Bitcoiners will inherit the earth. So another comparison that I find really interesting is you have this mysterious, legendary founder of Bitcoin known as Satoshi, but we don't know if this is a real person or not. And this is something that you also see in religious movements. So there is a charismatic leader whose authority comes not from any sort of institution, but simply because they have this kind of aura. And it's very hard to maintain charisma, because if your followers see you, with spinach in your teeth or something like this, they realize you're just a person. And so the fact that Satoshi is this mysterious figure who's nobody's ever met has kind of helped keep the value of Bitcoin up. It's helped keep that mystique, and it's helped people to, frankly, keep faith in Bitcoin.
What does this mean for the value of Bitcoin? Every generation after this one will grow up with Bitcoin. It won't be something whose birth they have to grapple with, as many of us watching this video have done. It will simply be a fact of life. These beliefs have now taken root deeply in our society. As time goes on, and as the marketing machines of BlackRock and these other giant financial institutions go to work, this set of beliefs are likely to take even firmer root. The other main feature of Bitcoin is that it cannot be confiscated. And Bitcoin's claim on the market for assets that cannot be confiscated has been a significant point in its favor. Technically, all you need to recover your Bitcoin is your private key. As long as you have your private key, you have your Bitcoin. And there is certainly precedent in recent history where the state has looted entire populations. Bitcoin was envisioned as a solution to this. It is easier to transport than gold, is a more discreet store of wealth, and even today, that is a reason people store significant portions of their wealth in Bitcoin.
One of the things that made me a believer is as I went around the world talking to people who would tell you, I had somebody who said, I keep 50% of my savings in Bitcoin because if I say the wrong thing in my country, I could have my assets confiscated.
This brings us to the ETFs. On Thursday, January 11th, 2024, 9 new Bitcoin ETFs began trading. Grayscale was the 10th, but that was not new. The players in this space are a mixture of financial behemoths like BlackRock and Franklin Templeton, mid-sized, long-term advocates like ARK, and relatively smaller firms like Valkyrie. Why did the SEC finally approve Bitcoin ETFs? I think it's fair to say that Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, was not an enthusiastic supporter.
Bitcoin itself, we did not approve, we do not endorse.
The most likely answer is that the SEC feels compelled to do it because of a court decision.
And something had changed. I'm a deep believer in the rule of law and a respect for the courts, and taking a new court decision into consideration, we move forward. I think this is the most sustainable path forward.
The SEC had previously ruled against a Bitcoin ETF because they argued that regulated exchanges were not able to monitor trades in a way that guaranteed against fraud and market manipulation. The courts ultimately disagreed with this argument.
And so the platforms, the various places that you might buy or sell these crypto security tokens need to come into compliance with the federal laws.
However Chairman Gensler and other regulators feel about Bitcoin, the ETFs are now out in the wild. From a pure value standpoint, this is likely to be a positive thing. The formidable marketing teams at BlackRock and Franklin Templeton will expose new segments of the market to Bitcoin. When GLD, the gold ETF, was launched in November 2004, it set off a significant increase in the price of spot gold. The post-ETF price expectations for Bitcoin range from $100,000 to much higher numbers.
Our base case is in the $600,000 range. Our bull case, and we think the probability of the bull case has increased with this SEC approval. This is a green light. Our bull case is $1.5 million by 2030.
It is difficult to say exactly where the price of Bitcoin will be, and in many ways, that does not matter.
You had Kathy Wood on this morning saying, oh, no, it'll be 600,000. Look, of course she's going to say that. She's trying to sell her product.
Over the next few years, the conversation about Bitcoin will get folded into your normal retirement planning process. The people you talk to about money, your financial advisors at Fidelity, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton, and the army of independent RIAs backed by BlackRock and these other institutions will start to talk to you about it in the most normal terms.
Zero exposure to Bitcoin is the wrong number. Every time you add a risky asset to a portfolio that's uncorrelated with the other assets, your portfolio gets more efficient. You get more return per unit of risk.
With the launch of these ETFs, something fundamental in this market has changed. It is no longer a precious secret known to a few. It has announced itself. Bitcoin has grown up. It is mainstream. Like most 15-year-olds, Bitcoin is at war with itself. The adults in the room are pulling it in different directions. Nurture is superseding what was its essential nature as a mechanism to disrupt financial institutions. Those institutions have claimed it as their own. It has become too valuable to use as a form of payment. The ETFs fundamentally violate the protection it affords from confiscation. But, in spite of, and sometimes because of these things, it has carved out a place for itself in the world. It has gotten people to believe in it entirely on its own terms. And for now, maybe that's enough. Thank you for watching. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. It costs you nothing and it helps me a lot.